What are a couple of points of encouragement you can give our audience as far as how you speak with people as they're going through their stages?
Mm-hmm. One of the things that was brought up earlier was about anxiety, and we all have, Michelle was introducing her visual, and then I was thinking about my visual. I guess maybe we all have them. Mine is a bucket of worms, and I visualize a fairly good-sized bucket full of worms, all squirming and crawling, and, you know, it's like where, and that's your anxiety, that's all your issues of anxiety. And so one of the things that I work on with people in trying to cope with this whole spectrum of distress is, let's just pluck them out one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. It's not doable if you look down into that crawling bucket of worms. It is not doable. You have to start sort of removing things and identifying. And one of the things that I do in my work, kind of the bucket of worm thing, is just you keep going, okay, what's under that? Well, what's that about? Well, what's beneath that? Well, what do you think that caused that? And you just keep going, you know, because like a good one is like anger. A lot of people just have a lot of anger. Well, you're not just angry. You know, what's under that anger? What's making you angry? And you just keep digging, 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 and you get down to genuine fears and emotions and so on, but it kind of comes out sideways as anger. So that's one way of dealing with some of that distress, is just starting to parcel it out. And one of the things that we identify then is, oh my gosh, what a long list that is after all. Because you're kind of putting it all together in one package of cancer. Well, it's not just cancer, you know, it's impacted every corner of your life. And, you know, all the sort of normal day-to-day routines and aspects of your life that you're no longer have the enthusiasm for, or don't have the physical energy or the mental energy or the emotional energy. It all just keeps kind of squirming around in that big bucket, and but it's parceling it out and realizing, oh, there's just so much going on here with the financial realm and my family and how they're coping and how are my kids doing in school, and you know, just what about my job? I'm going to lose my job. Do I have disability? What the heck is disability? You know, just all that stuff. So we have to just tackle it one point at a time.
What are some false assumptions and unrealistic expectations that survivors and caregivers have that you may want to help clarify?
Well, one, as a social worker, probably, you know, that one of the biggest concerns that people come to me with is the whole financial realm, and you'll hear more about that from experts that know a lot more about that than me, but that is what comes at me, is just the instant panic. It's not a good economy, and the last couple of years in this world have been really, really difficult as I've watched the interplay between real life and then throw cancer into the mix. And so people are losing their jobs either because they're just losing their jobs or because they can no longer work. But there are just so many social, cultural things going on right now and financial in our world that are impacting us. And then you throw in cancer and it gets to be quite a crisis. So I get lots of questions about the financial programs that are out there to help, because we're all Americans and we all donate and we pay our taxes and we think, okay, when my time comes, there's going to be something out there. And what a surprise when you find out there really isn't much, if anything. And that's really hard for me to let people know that it's pretty limited out there, and it's worse than it was even a few years ago. Most people think that disability is something, Social Security disability, well, that'll be out there for me until I'm able to get back to work. No, Social Security disability since the Reagan years changed, and people aren't aware of it, that it means permanent disability. You have to be disabled at least 1 year with no expectation to ever return to work. And so there's that people just kind of assume is there for them, and it's not. And the county, just to give you a number to let you know how, dire that is. The income under the county, if you're totally without income and totally wiped out, you get a whopping $205 a month. And then they might help you with some housing and some food stamps, but again, not money that you can survive on. So that's probably one of the biggest false assumptions and shocks is, you know, there's a few funds out there that I can lead people to that'll help them get at least over the hump during treatment, help with maybe a mortgage or a rent, some utilities, some food cards, that kind of thing, but nothing for kind of an interim crisis that lasts under a year. And then the other kind of false assumption that I think is important to address, because I hear it so much, is what did I, and this is, it falls into a lot of arenas, but it's kind of an existential, it's a mini kind. What did I do to cause this cancer? People believe they caused their cancer somehow, and we too often don't get right on top of that and talk about that. But the sad side of that belief of what did I do, and just assuming guilt, because we're good at that, is, the other side of that is, then I'm responsible to cure it too. Well, what a burden. And, you know, and when you uncover that and you start talking about it, people can start identifying how unrealistic that is, that it's just a little bit crazy thinking, but that's the pressure, you know, because again, you're in the business of saving your life. This is number one. I got to save my life. So yeah, I'll take the chemo, I'll take the radiation, I'll do whatever you tell me to do, but then what can I do? And what you can do is support your spirit and support your emotional side and some of your thinking side, but you can't cure yourself. And I have a group called Renewing Life. It's an 8-week series about kind of survivorship, and one of the things we talk about is that very thing about, you know, this sort of new age medicine that's out there that we're all aware of, that nobody comes and talks to their doctor about, but it's out there and people are really participating. The data is high. I wish I should have had that available, but it's very high how much people are participating in complementary therapies, alternative treatments, that type of thing. They don't tell their doctors, but again, it's another example of where people think, I got to do something to save myself, you know, in case Western medicine isn't covering it. And so we need to talk about that, and one of my points with people is, how do you explain cancer in children? And then you just kind of get that big-eyed, oh, yeah, well, we can't really accuse children of being responsible for their cancer. So sometimes people can move that forward into, well, then what makes me think I'm, you know, what could I have done that was so bad that I earned cancer? But I don't know what your guys' experience is, but I find a lot of people that feel that pressure. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Are there any other points that you'd like to share before we go to questions and answers?
Couple things. One of the things that, again, because I'm social work, that I deal with is sort of change in roles, and that's a big deal to people and their families, is that it's like everybody kind of had their little jobs, you know, and then that all just gets tossed up in the air and everything comes crumbling down, and it's a whole reorder, again, of that new normal, which is people, if you tell me new normal one more time, but it's the truth. You know, when cancer comes for both the patient, family, the caregivers, everybody, it's a wake-up call to your life. You end up doing eventually a whole examination of, okay, am I living authentically? Am I living into my values? What are my real priorities? Smelling the roses, like, you know, I mean, it's just that kind of stuff really comes into play. And roles become a very big deal because there needs to be an exchange of roles just to get through this experience. And so things that we are, as Americans, we're very independent. We don't like dependency. We forget about interdependency. And, you know, there's a flux, there's a flow, and we have to change and we have to adapt, but we don't like it. We don't like asking for help. And so with that wake-up call and sort of the redistribution, and you realize nothing is ever going to be the same again, you're not going to go back to the way things were, but there also has to be that whole coping with the redistribution of roles, and that's really tough to let go. And I am the worst. I am the worst. I can preach to you till the cows come home about accepting help and letting your families, giving them the gift of helping you. They need to have something to do. I can preach, I can tell you how to do it, but doing it myself is really tough. And I just think I really blame it on an American culture. I just really think that's kind of where we're all at. We're very independent, we're strappy, and you know, we know how to go after things, and when we just absolutely can't, it's alarming. It's very alarming. So I think that's probably the main, yeah.
Excellent.
Asking for help.